Please accept this meal.
Thank you. God bless you.
Quick, get inside!
Before sunrise, Amara had only one bag of rice left to her name. By midnight, 7 luxury SUVs were parked outside her broken house. But what shocked the village was not the cars. It was the old beggar stepping out of the first one, wearing a white agbada, gold-rimmed glasses, and the silence of a man who had come to reveal the truth. The whole village stood frozen under the moonlight. Children peeped from windows. Women tied wrappers over their shoulders and whispered prayers. Men who had laughed at Amara in the market suddenly found it difficult to breathe. Because the stranger they had called useless that afternoon was no longer sitting in the dust. He was standing beside 7 bodyguards, and every one of them was looking directly at Amara's door. Then the old man raised his walking stick and said in a voice calm enough to frighten the proud, "Bring me the woman who fed me when the world walked past." And that was when Amara, the poorest widow in Yumiri town, stepped out barefoot, holding her youngest daughter to her chest, not knowing whether God had sent judgment, blessing, or both. The morning began with silence, the kind of silence that lives in a house where food has become a prayer. Amara sat on a wooden stool beside the kitchen doorway and stared at the last bag of rice in the corner. The bag was not full. It leaned weakly against the wall, tied with a faded blue rope, as if even the rice inside was tired of waiting for better days. Her 3 children watched her without asking questions. Kemi, the eldest, was 11 and already old enough to understand hunger without naming it. Teo, 8, rubbed his stomach and pretended he was not hungry because he had seen his mother cry the night before. Little Saad, only 4, sat on the floor and played with an empty plastic cup, singing to herself because childhood sometimes protects the heart from the full weight of poverty. Amara touched the rice bag with both hands. "Your father used to say rice should never finish in a home," she whispered. "He said where there is rice there is hope." Her voice cracked before the last word could stand properly. Her husband, Emeka, had died 2 years earlier after a road accident on the highway between the town and the city. He left no money, only a small piece of farmland, 3 children, and a promise that Amara had carried like fire in her chest: "Do not let them become bitter. Raise them with kindness even if the world gives you none." But kindness did not pay rent. Kindness did not buy school uniforms. Kindness did not silence the landlord who had come 3 times in 1 week, shouting at the gate as if Amara had stolen his house instead of simply failing to pay for it. That morning she made a decision that tasted like defeat. She would carry the last bag of rice to the market and sell it. With the money she would pay part of the rent, buy a little Gary, and maybe keep enough to send Kemi back to school before the headmaster removed her name from the class list. Kemi stood up quietly. "Mama, if you sell it, what will we eat tonight?" Amara looked at her daughter and forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "God will provide something before night." Teo looked toward the doorway. "Does God know our house?" The question entered Amara like a small knife. She knelt and pulled him close. "Yes, my son. Even when people forget us, God does not lose our address." She lifted the bag onto her head. It was heavy but not as heavy as shame. As she stepped into the dusty road, neighbors watched from their verandas. Nobody greeted her warmly. Poverty has a smell that proud people pretend they can detect from far away. "I warned you," the woman continued. "A widow should learn to marry again. Children cannot eat memories." Amara tightened her grip on the bag and continued walking. Behind her, Kemi held Sada's hand. Teo followed with an empty bowl, hoping his mother might return with something, anything, before nightfall. At the end of the street, Amara looked back at the small house with cracked walls and a rusted zinc roof. She did not know that by midnight, that same broken house would become the center of the whole town's attention. She did not know that 7 SUVs would stop where goats usually slept. She only knew one thing: she had to survive the day. Yumiri Market was already awake when Amara arrived. Women shouted prices above the noise of motorcycles. Boys pushed wheelbarrows between tomato stalls. Smoke from roasted corn mixed with the smell of palm oil, pepper, and dust. It was the kind of place where money spoke loudly and poverty lowered its head. Amara found a small space near the rice cellars and lowered the bag carefully. Before she could untie it, Mama Beezy saw her. Mama Beezy was the queen of the rice section, a woman with gold bangles, a sharp mouth, and a heart people feared more than they trusted. Her stall was large. Her bags of rice were stacked like white walls behind her. "Look who has joined the rice business," Mama Beezy laughed loud enough for nearby traders to hear. Amara, widow of big dreams and empty pots. Mama Beezy bent down and pressed the rice through the bag. "This one? It is not even a full bag. Who will buy this sadness?" Amara swallowed. "It is clean rice. I just need a fair price." "Fair price," Mama Beezy shouted. "In this market, price follows power. You have no shop, no husband, no protection. Take whatever they give you and thank God." The laughter came again, this time sharper. Amara's face burned, but she did not cry. She had learned that tears in public are like salt thrown to goats. Everyone comes to lick your weakness. While she waited, a man in a clean brown kaftan approached. It was Uncle Chuka, her late husband's elder cousin. He had been circling her life like a vulture since Emeka died. He smiled as if he had come with comfort, but Amara knew that smile. It was the smile of a man who wanted to take what did not belong to him while calling it family tradition. "I told you to bring the land paper. Let me handle it. A woman alone cannot protect property. If you sign it to me, I will give you something every month. That land belongs to my children." His smile disappeared for 1 second, then returned with poison inside it. "Children need food today, not land tomorrow." Amara turned away. "I will not sign." Uncle Chuka leaned closer. "Pride is dangerous for widows. Remember that." Amara looked at the market road and prayed for one customer who would not insult her before buying. Then near the entrance she saw a crowd shifting around something on the ground. At first she thought it was a sick goat. Then she saw a human hand trembling beside the gutter. An old man sat there, dusty and weak, his back against a broken signpost. His clothes were torn. His lips were dry. People walked around him as if suffering were contagious. He raised one hand and whispered, "Water, please." Nobody stopped. Amara stared at him and something in her chest tightened. She had come to the market to sell her last hope. But now hope itself was sitting in the dust, asking for water. The old man tried to stand and failed. His walking stick rolled away from his hand. A group of boys laughed and kicked dust near his feet. A well-dressed woman covered her nose as she passed. One trader shouted, "Go and die somewhere else. You are blocking customers." Amara looked around, expecting someone stronger, richer, or more comfortable to help him. Nobody did. The market continued breathing around him, alive with profit, dead to mercy. She turned back to her rice bag. If she left her space, someone might steal from it. If she spent any money, her children would suffer. If she helped him, people would mock her again. But if she did nothing, she would carry his face home with her and see it every time she closed her eyes. She walked to the pure water cellar and bought 2 sachets with a few coins tied in the corner of her wrapper. Then she crossed to the old man and knelt beside him. "Papa, drink small," she said, tearing the sachet open with her teeth. His eyes opened slowly. They were not ordinary eyes. They were tired, yes, but deep. The kind of eyes that had seen boardrooms, betrayals, hospital ceilings, and lonely nights. But Amara only saw hunger. "Thank you, my daughter," he whispered. "Have you eaten?" He shook his head. "Yesterday morning. Maybe before. I do not remember." Amara looked toward the food stalls. The cheapest plate of rice and beans cost more than she wanted to spend. She thought of Kemi asking, "What will we eat tonight?" She thought of Teo asking whether God knew their address. She thought of Saad singing with an empty cup. Then she heard her husband's voice from memory, "Raise them with kindness, even if the world gives you none." She stood and returned to her rice bag. By then, a man had finally offered to buy it, but at a wicked price. He knew she was desperate. "Take it or leave it," he said. Amara looked at the bag, then at the old man, then at the cloudless sky. "I will sell half." Mama Beezy burst into laughter. This woman has started measuring poverty in portions. The man paid for half the bag. It was less than fair, but it was money. Amara took part of it and bought a full plate of rice, beans, stew, and one piece of meat from a small food stall. The food seller looked surprised. For you? Maybe, Amara said. But he needs the food now. She carried the plate to the old man and sat beside him until he ate. People began to gather. Mama Beezy made sure they gathered loudly. Come and see foolishness, she called. Her children are hungry at home, but she is feeding a beggar meat. The old man's hand paused over the plate. Shame crossed his face. Amara saw it and gently said, Eat, Papa. Do not mind them. He looked at her. You do not know me. Hunger does not need introduction. He swallowed slowly and for a moment his eyes shone with tears. What is your name? Amara. Amara, he repeated as if placing the name somewhere important. Grace. Then today Grace has found me in the dust. Amara did not know what to say. Behind them, a man in a faded cap seemed to be buying oranges, but his eyes never left the old man. Across the road, another man leaned on a motorcycle and typed something into his phone. Amara did not notice them. She did not know that every insult, every laugh, every act of kindness was being watched. When the old man finished eating, he took her hand. His palm was rough, but his grip was strangely steady. My daughter, what can I give you? Amara shook her head. Nothing. Just pray for my children. Prayer is not small when life is heavy. The old man stared at her for a long time. Then he nodded. Before this day ends, may the God who sees hidden tears remember your house. Amara whispered amen, not knowing that the prayer had already begun moving toward her door on 7 wheels of midnight thunder. By late afternoon, Amara returned home with only a little money, a small measure of gari, and the remaining half bag of rice balanced on her head. The sun was low, and the road home felt longer than it had in the morning. Every step reminded her of what she had spent. Every breath asked her whether kindness had made her children poorer. Kemi ran out first. Her eyes went to the bag. She saw it was smaller and said nothing. That silence hurt Amara more than any question. Teo looked behind her. Mama, did you buy fish? Amara placed the bag down and touched his cheek. Not today. Saad lifted the gari and smiled. We will drink this one? Amara looked away. No sugar. But we will drink it together. They sat outside as evening spread purple shadows over the compound. Amara mixed the gari thin so it could reach everyone. She gave the children first and pretended she was not hungry. Kemi noticed and pushed her cup toward her mother. Mama, take some. I ate in the market. Kemi looked into her eyes. No, you did not. Amara smiled weakly. You are too wise for 11. Before night fully settled, Mama Neka came to the fence with another woman. News travels fast in a village, but bad news travels with dancing legs. Amara, she called, is it true you fed a mad old beggar with your children's food? Amara rose slowly. He was hungry. Amara wanted to answer, but her children were listening. So she kept her voice calm. A person can be poor in the pocket and still not be poor in the soul. Mama Neka hissed. Soul will not pay school fees. They left laughing. Kemi's face hardened. Mama, why do you let them talk to you like that? Because anger is expensive, my daughter. We cannot afford it every day. Later, after the children slept, Amara sat alone outside. The moon was thin. The compound smelled of dry earth and old rain. She counted the money again. It was not enough for rent. Not enough for fees. Not enough for anything serious. She pressed her hands to her face and finally allowed the tears to come. Emika, she whispered to the night, I tried. I'm trying. But I am tired. Inside, Saad coughed in her sleep. Amara wiped her face quickly and went in to cover the children with a worn wrapper. Then she lay down beside them, eyes open, listening to hunger move around the room like a silent animal. Near midnight, just when sleep began to pull her down, a sound rose from the far end of the road. At first it was low, like thunder hiding behind the hills. Then it grew louder. Engines. Many engines. Heavy ones. Then the first SUV stopped in front of her house. Then the second. Then the third. By the time the seventh black luxury SUV lined up outside her broken fence, every light in the neighborhood was on. A man in a black suit stepped out and looked at the house number written in chalk beside the door. Then he said, "This is the place." Amara held her children close. She had never seen such cars except on television. And now they were at her door. The street that had mocked Amara by day now stood silent under the authority of 7 black SUVs. Their engines purred like restrained lions. Their tinted windows reflected the moon. Men in dark suits stepped out, one after another, each moving with the discipline of soldiers and the calm of people who did not ask permission to enter a place. Neighbors gathered at a distance. Mama Neka wrapped her scarf quickly and came barefoot. Mama Beezy arrived from the next street wearing a nightgown and confusion. Uncle Chuka pushed his way through the crowd, already smelling opportunity or danger. Nobody laughed now. Amara stood in the doorway with Kemi behind her, Teo gripping her wrapper, and Saad half asleep in her arms. The tallest man in a suit walked toward her. "Are you Mrs. Amara Emeka?" Her mouth went dry. "Yes." "Please do not be afraid." That sentence did not help. People who say do not be afraid are usually standing beside reasons to fear. Another door opened. A polished shoe touched the ground. Then a walking stick appeared. The old man from the market stepped out slowly, but he was no longer covered in dust. He wore a white agbada with careful embroidery, a red cap, and glasses that flashed under the headlights. 2 men stood beside him not because he was weak but because he was important. Gasps moved through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Mama Beezy whispered, "Impossible." Amara's knees almost failed her. "Papa?" The old man smiled. "My daughter." Uncle Chuka frowned. "Who is this man?" A younger man stepped forward and answered with pride. "This is Chief Gabriel Adewale, founder of Adewale Foods and Logistics, owner of the Royal Grain Mills, and chairman of the Market Redevelopment Trust." The crowd broke into murmurs. Even those who did not know his face knew the name. Adewale rice was sold in half the state. His trucks passed through villages like moving warehouses. His name was printed on bags, signboards, and charity banners. But to Amara, he had been only a hungry old man by the gutter. Chief Adewale raised his hand and the murmurs died. Mama Beezy took one step backward. The chief continued, "But this woman who had less than all of you, gave more than all of you." Amara shook her head, tears already rising. "Papa, I only gave you food." "No," he said. "You gave me dignity." One of the suited men opened a folder. Another held a tablet. The chief looked at the crowd. "For 6 months I have watched this town. I have watched the market I helped build become a place where the strong swallow the weak. I have watched widows pushed aside, orphans overcharged, and poor traders mocked. My family told me the people here were good. Today I came to see with my own eyes." Uncle Chuka stepped forward with nervous confidence. "Chief, with respect, maybe this is a misunderstanding. Amara is my family. We take care of her." Kemi looked at him in disbelief. Amara's face tightened. Chief Adewale turned to him. "Are you the man who asked her to surrender her children's land papers?" Uncle Chuka froze. I only advised her." The man with the tablet tapped the screen. A recording played through a small speaker. Uncle Chuka's voice filled the road. "Children need food today, not land tomorrow. Pride is dangerous for widows." A murmur rose again, this time heavy with shame. Chief Adewale looked at Amara. "My daughter, tonight is not the full answer. Tomorrow morning at the market square, the whole town will hear what God has decided through the hands of men." Then he turned back to the crowd. "Nobody will threaten this woman tonight. Nobody will touch this house. My men will stay at this gate until morning." For the first time in 2 years, Amara felt protected. She did not yet know from what or for what. But as the chief lifted his hand in blessing and the headlights shone across her cracked walls, she understood something simple. The god Teo had asked about had not lost their address. He had arrived at midnight. Nobody slept properly in Yumiri that night. The SUVs remained outside Amara's house like black stones placed by destiny. 2 guards stood near the gate. One sat in the first vehicle watching the road. From time to time, curious villagers came close, pretended to pass by, and ran away when a guard turned his head. Inside the house, Amara's children whispered until their whispers became questions. "Mama," Teo said, "is the old man now a king?" Amara looked at her eldest daughter. "I do not know." Kemi sat with her knees to her chest. "Maybe God really knows our house." Amara pulled her close. "Yes. And maybe he was waiting for us to pass a test we did not know we were taking." Outside, the village was not only awake with wonder. It was awake with fear. Mama Beezy returned home and opened her shop account book with trembling hands, as if numbers could protect her from shame. She remembered calling the old man useless. She remembered telling customers not to buy from Amara. She remembered laughing when Amara bought food for him. Every memory now had teeth. Uncle Chuka was even more afraid. He locked his door and opened a metal box under his bed. Inside were copies of land documents, old receipts, and a paper he had prepared for Amara to sign. If Chief Adewale had recordings, what else did he have? Chuka's wife watched him burn one document over a candle flame. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Protecting this family." "From what?" He did not answer. In a mansion 2 towns away, another man was not sleeping. Damilola Adewale, the chief's nephew, paced across a marble floor with a phone pressed to his ear. He was young, polished, and dangerous in the way educated greed can be dangerous. 4 years he had waited for his uncle to sign control of the company to him. Chief Adewale had no surviving children. Damilola believed inheritance was not a possibility but a right. Personal? Damilola laughed without humor. At midnight with 7 SUVs? He ended the call and threw the phone onto a sofa. His wife, Zena, watched from the staircase. "Is it your uncle again?" "He is playing games." "Maybe he is only doing charity." Damilola turned sharply. "Charity is what rich men do when they are bored. But my uncle does not move lawyers, cameras, and security for boredom." He walked to the window. "Find out everything about the woman." Amara Emeka. Widow. 3 children. Poor. If my uncle is giving her anything, I want to know before sunrise. Back in Amara's house, the widow finally closed her eyes near dawn. She dreamed of a rice field after rain, green and endless, and Emeka walking toward her with a smile. But before he reached her, a bell rang from the market square. Morning had come. And with it, justice had dressed itself for public view. By 8 in the morning, Yumiri Market Square was fuller than it had been on festival days. Traders abandoned their stalls. School children stood on stones. Motorcycle riders parked in crooked lines. Even the town elders came, adjusting their caps and pretending they had always known something great was about to happen. A small stage had been set near the old market signboard. Behind it stood banners from Adewale Foods and Logistics, but there was no celebration music, no dancing, no announcer shouting praise names. The atmosphere felt like a courtroom built under the open sky. Amara arrived wearing her cleanest dress, a faded blue gown with a repaired sleeve. Kemi had washed Sada's face until the little girl complained. Teo wore sandals that did not match, but he stood proudly beside his mother. People stepped aside as they passed. Yesterday those same people had looked through Amara as if she were smoke. Today they made space for her like she carried fire. Mama Beezy stood near her rice stall, lips pressed together. Uncle Chuka stood with 2 elders whispering too much. Damilola arrived in a silver car with dark glasses and a lawyer who carried himself like a knife in human form. At exactly 9, Chief Adewale stepped onto the stage. He was not smiling. Beside him stood Mr. Okafor, his longtime lawyer, and 3 men with cameras. The chief greeted the elders, then faced the crowd. "People of Yumiri," he began, Many years ago, my late wife and I helped rebuild this market after the fire. We did it because we believed a market should be more than a place of buying and selling. It should be a place where a poor woman can stand beside a rich one and still be treated as human. The crowd was silent. But power can spoil any place. Money can make people forget that the ground under a mansion and the ground under a hut are the same earth. He nodded to Mr. Okafor. A screen was set up and one of the men connected a device. Video appeared. The crowd saw the old man sitting by the gutter. They saw people pass. They heard a trader shout, "Go and die somewhere else." They heard laughter. They saw Mama busy pointing. Then they saw Amara kneel and give him water. Amara bought food. People mocked her. She told the old man hunger does not need introduction. Then she asked only for prayer. Chief Adewale stopped the video. His eyes were wet now. When a poor person gives, heaven pays attention. When a hungry mother feeds a stranger, even the angels pause. Amara covered her face. Kemi held her mother's arm. Mama Bizi suddenly stepped forward. "Chief, please," I spoke carelessly. "Market talk is not from the heart." Chief Adewale looked at her. "Madam, the mouth is the window of the heart when pride opens it." The crowd murmured. Mama Bizi stepped back, humiliated but not yet broken. Then Damilola climbed onto the stage uninvited. His lawyer followed. "Uncle, with respect, this public drama is unnecessary. If you want to help the widow, help her privately. But do not use company resources to embarrass respected traders." Chief Adewale turned slowly. "Damilola, you came early?" "Because someone must protect the family name." The chief's expression hardened. The family name was not in danger when a hungry old man sat in the dust. It entered danger when people who carry my blood forgot what my blood stands for. Damilola forced a smile. "Uncle, you are emotional. Let us go home." Chief Adewale raised his walking stick. "No. Today we will finish what greed started." The crowd leaned in. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. Damilola removed his sunglasses and faced the crowd like a man trying to turn an accusation into a performance. "People of Yumuri, please do not be deceived. My uncle is a good man, but he is old. He is grieving. He sometimes makes emotional decisions. This woman helped him, yes, but should one plate of food become a reason to hand over family wealth?" The lawyer beside him nodded as if wisdom had spoken. Some people in the crowd shifted. Greed always tries to sound reasonable when it is afraid. Chief Adewale did not interrupt. He allowed Damilola to continue. "Let us be honest," Damilola said, pointing toward Amara. "Poverty can make people clever. How do we know she did not know who he was? How do we know this was not arranged?" A sharp pain crossed Amara's face. Kemi stepped forward. "Do not talk about my mother like that." Amara pulled her back gently, but Chief Adewale saw the child's anger and nodded as if he respected it. Damilola smiled coldly. "Children should not speak when elders are discussing business." Chief Adewale's voice cut through the air. "And greedy nephews should not speak when truth is about to expose them." The crowd gasped. "Proceed." The lawyer spoke clearly. "For 3 years, Mr. Damilola Adewale has pressured Chief Adewale to transfer controlling interest in Adewale Foods and Logistics to a private company registered under Damilola's associate. We have documents, messages, and recorded meetings." Damilola's face changed. "This is defamation." Mr. Okafor continued. 2 weeks ago, Chief Adewale received information that market redevelopment funds meant for widows and small traders were being diverted. The internal review led to this town. The chief chose to visit personally, disguised, because he wanted to see how ordinary people were treated before taking action. Mama Bizi looked at the ground. Uncle Chuka began to sweat visibly. Chief Adewale faced Damilola. "You told me the market needed strong hands. You told me poor traders misuse help. You told me widows exaggerate suffering. Yesterday I sat in the dust and watched the people you called undeserving. The rich passed. The comfortable mocked. The proud insulted. But the poorest widow in the market gave what she could not afford. No, the chief said. Because of evidence, I will remove business from a thief. The word landed like thunder. Damalola moved toward him, but two security men stepped between them. His lawyer whispered urgently, but Damalola shook him off. Chief Adewale looked over the crowd. Today is not only about rewarding kindness. It is also about removing cruelty from places where it has been wearing perfume. Then he turned to Uncle Chuka. And you? Come forward. Uncle Chuka's mouth opened but no sound came. The crowd turned toward him. Amara felt Kemi's hand tighten around hers. For 2 years this man had haunted their doorway. Now justice had called his name in public. Uncle Chuka walked to the front with the stiffness of a man approaching a grave he had dug for someone else. He tried to smile at the elders but no one smiled back. Chief Adewale watched him without blinking. You told this widow to hand over her children's land papers, the chief said. Chuka cleared his throat. Chief, in our culture, family protects property. Is that what you call it? Yes. I wanted to help. Mr. Okafor lifted a document. Did you prepare this transfer agreement? Chuka's eyes widened. Where did you get that? Answer the question. It was only a draft. A draft that would transfer the late Emeka's farmland to you for the sum of 1,000 naira? The crowd erupted. Even the elders looked ashamed. Chuka pointed at Amara. She is a woman. She cannot farm it. The land will waste. Amara stepped forward. For once her voice rose. The land will not waste. My husband worked for it. My children will inherit it. Poverty is not permission to rob us. The crowd fell silent. It was the first time many had heard Amara speak with such strength. Chief Adewale nodded. Well said. Then he addressed the elders. From today, my legal team will secure that land in the names of Amara's children. Any man who attempts to pressure her again will meet me in court. Teo looked up at his mother. Mama, does that mean Papa's land is safe? Amara knelt and held his face. Yes, my son. Safe. Chuka tried to protest, but his voice drowned under the crowd's disapproval. People who had once told Amara to obey tradition now shook their heads at him as if they had not helped silence her before. Chief Adewale raised his hand again. But there is more. The crowd quieted. Chief Adewale asked, What did you say when she fed me? Mama Bizi wiped her face. Chief, forgive me. I did not ask for forgiveness. I asked what you said. Her lips trembled. I said her children were hungry and she was feeding a beggar meat. And were her children hungry? Mama Bizi glanced at Amara. Yes. Then you saw a hungry family and chose mockery instead of help. The words broke something in the market woman's face. She began to cry. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough for everyone to see that shame had finally entered where pride had lived for years. Chief Adewale turned to Amara. My daughter, do you want revenge? Chief Adewale smiled for the first time that morning. That is why grace is stronger than power. A table was carried onto the stage. On it were documents, a small wooden box, and a framed certificate covered with a white cloth. The crowd stretched their necks to see. Amara did not move. Her heart was beating too loudly for her to understand what was happening. Chief Adewale stood beside the table. Many people think helping the poor means throwing coins at pain and walking away. That is not help. That is noise. Real help restores dignity. He removed the cloth from the frame. The words were bold. Yumuri Community Rice Cooperative Founding Director, Amara Emeka. Amara stared at it, confused. Chief, I do not understand. You will, he said gently. From today, Adewale Foods and Logistics will fund a rice cooperative in this town. It will supply rice at fair prices to widows, teachers, small traders and families in need. It will also train women to run small food businesses honestly. And you, Amara, will lead it. A sound rose from the crowd. Some clapped. Some shouted. Some were too shocked to react. Amara stepped back. Me? Chief, I'm not educated like that. I only finished secondary school. You finished honesty, he replied. We can hire accountants. We can train managers. But a clean heart is harder to employ. Kemi began to cry. Teo looked at the framed certificate as if it were magic. Saad asked loudly, Mama, does this mean we can eat rice? Chief Adewale opened the wooden box. Inside were keys. There is a small warehouse near the East Road. It has been empty since the old distributor left. It now belongs to the cooperative. Not to you alone, but under your leadership for the good of this community. He handed her the keys. Amara's hands shook so badly that Kemi helped her hold them. Then Mr. Okafor presented another document. The school fees of Kemi, Teo, and Saad will be covered through university by the Adewale Foundation. Chief Adewale placed his hand above her head. Stand up, my daughter. The same people who watched you bend under hunger must also watch you rise with grace. Chief Adewale turned to him. I met her yesterday. But I met her character before I met your conscience. The crowd murmured approval. Damalola shouted, I will challenge this in court. Mr. Okafor smiled slightly. You may. But before you do, you should know that the audit report has already been submitted to the Economic Crimes Unit. Damalola's face drained of color. Chief Adewale's voice dropped. You wanted my signature. Today you will receive my answer. You are removed from all company roles pending investigation. The crowd gasped. Damalola looked around as if searching for someone powerful enough to save him. But greed had many friends during profit and very few during exposure. He stepped off the stage, shaking with rage. But before he entered his car, Kemi spoke. Sir, she said, voice trembling, my mother did not feed your uncle because she wanted his money. Please do not insult poor people as if we are always planning something. Damalola looked at the child and for once he had no answer. For a long moment nobody spoke. Mama Bizi, who had ruled the rice section with a sharp tongue and heavier scales, looked at the certificate in Amara's trembling hands and understood that the market had changed while she was still standing in yesterday's pride. She stepped forward, not with the confidence of a traitor this time, but with the fear of a woman who had spent years mistaking cruelty for strength. Amara, she said, her voice rough, I mocked you because I thought poverty was a disease I could catch. I laughed because your pain made me feel powerful. But yesterday when I watched that video I saw myself clearly and I was ashamed. The crowd waited for Amara to answer. Some people wanted a public insult. Some wanted a dramatic punishment. But Amara only looked at the woman who had injured her many times and saw someone smaller than her own pride. Chief Adewale did not rescue Mama Bizi from the silence. He let the silence teach her. Finally, Mama Bizi lowered herself to her knees in the same dust where the old stranger had sat the day before. Her gold bangles touched the ground. Forgive me, she whispered. Not because I deserve it, but because I do not want to remain this kind of woman. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Forgiveness did not erase memory. Forgiveness did not make evil small. But it stopped evil from living rent-free inside her heart. She stepped forward and helped Mama Bizi stand. I forgive you, she said, but from today you will treat poor women with respect. If you cannot do that, then your stall will not be part of the new cooperative. The crowd murmured. It was not the answer they expected. It was stronger. Mercy had stood up, but wisdom was standing beside it. Damalola did not leave Yumuri in peace. By afternoon, while the market was still buzzing with the news, he sat inside his silver car and made calls with a voice sharp enough to cut glass. He ordered one of his men to search for anything that could embarrass Amara. A debt. A quarrel. A rumor. A mistake from 10 years ago. Greed never stops because truth has spoken. Greed only changes clothes. That evening, a false message began to spread through the town. It said Amara had been planted by Chief Adewale's enemies to steal the company. It said the children might not even be Emikas. It said kindness was only a performance. The words moved from phone to phone, from kiosk to kiosk, from whisper to whisper. By sunset, Kemi came home crying because 2 girls at the borehole had repeated the rumor in front of her. Amara wanted to collapse. She had survived hunger, insult, and fear, but lies have a different kind of pain. Lies enter places where facts cannot quickly follow. She sat on the edge of the bed and held Kemi while the younger children watched with frightened eyes. "Mama, why do people hate us?" Teo asked. Before Amara could answer, a vehicle stopped at the gate. It was Mr. Okafor with two members of Chief Adewale's media team. He carried printed papers and a small recording device. "Damilola has made his final mistake," he said. "We warned him not to defame you. Now the truth will answer with evidence." The next morning, Chief Adewale released a public statement with the market video, the audit timeline, and a legal notice against the rumor network. Damilola's own driver, tired of unpaid wages and threats, gave testimony that he had delivered money to people who were paid to spread the lies. The town that had swallowed the rumor now spat it out in shame. 3 weeks later, Chief Adewale asked Amara and the children to follow him to the edge of town. They drove past cassava farms, palm trees, and the old road where Emeka used to carry rice on a borrowed motorcycle. Amara sat quietly in the back seat, her hands folded in her lap, afraid to imagine too much because disappointment had trained her heart to sit small. The car stopped before a modest but beautiful house with cream walls, a blue gate, and a small garden waiting for flowers. It was not a mansion. It was better than a mansion. It was a home that looked like peace. Kemi covered her mouth. Teo pressed his face to the window. Saad shouted, "Mama, this house is smiling." Chief Adewale opened the gate himself. "This is not payment for kindness," he said. "No one can pay for the dignity you gave me. This is protection. A woman leading a cooperative must sleep in a place where rain does not enter her children's schoolbooks." Amara could not move. For 2 years she had measured every night by the sound of leaking roofs and landlord footsteps. Now a key lay in her palm, cool and impossible. She entered slowly. The sitting room smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. In the kitchen, bags of rice stood neatly in one corner, not as a test this time but as a promise. On the wall near the doorway hung a framed sentence written in simple black letters, "Where there is rice, there is hope." Amara touched the frame and began to cry. Those were Emeka's words. Chief Adewale had asked Kemi to write them down secretly. That night, Amara cooked rice for her children without counting every grain. They ate slowly, almost respectfully. Before sleeping, Teo stood at the blue gate and looked at the stars. "Mama," he said, "God did not only know our address. He changed it." The cooperative opened on a Saturday morning. There was no red carpet, but there were clean scales, honest price boards, and women standing with notebooks instead of fear. Amara wore a simple green dress and tied her headscarf neatly. She still looked like herself, but something had changed in the way she stood. She no longer carried shame on her shoulders. The first truck arrived with the Adewale Foods logo on the side and the words Grace Bowl Program painted below it. Children ran behind it, laughing. Teachers came with lists of families who needed support. Widows arrived carefully, as if afraid the blessing might disappear if they walked too quickly. Amara stood at the warehouse door and greeted each person by name. Mama Beezy came too, but not as queen of the market. She came as a volunteer, carrying a ledger and trying to learn softness one honest act at a time. Some people still did not trust her, and that was fair. Trust is not demanded. It is rebuilt with consistent hands. The first woman in line was an old widow named Ijeoma, who had once sold vegetables beside Amara and quietly slipped her pepper when no one was watching. Amara measured rice into her bag and refused to take extra money. Ijeoma began to cry. "My daughter, yesterday you were the one in need." Amara smiled. "Yesterday prepared me for today." By noon, the warehouse was full of voices, receipts, children, and the smell of cooked rice from a large pot outside. Nobody was allowed to push the weak aside. Nobody was allowed to insult those who paid less. Dignity had become a rule, not a favor. From across the road, Chief Adewale watched quietly. Mr. Okafor asked why he was smiling. The old man said, "Because I did not give her power. I only gave power a better owner." 1 year later, Yumiri no longer spoke of Amara in whispers of pity. They spoke of her in stories. The cooperative had grown from one warehouse to 3. A small rice farm had started on Emika's land, legally protected in the names of Kemi, Tayo, and Saad. Widows worked there during planting season and earned fair wages. Young people learned logistics, packaging, and delivery. Teachers bought rice at stable prices. Children who once came to school hungry now received meals twice a week through the Grace Bowl program. Amara did not become loud. She did not become the kind of person who wears success like a weapon. She still greeted elders. She still sat with women who cried over unpaid bills. But she no longer lowered her head when cruel people passed. Her humility had grown a backbone. On the anniversary of the day she fed Chief Adewale, the town held a small Thanksgiving gathering at the cooperative. No one called it Charity Day. Amara refused that name. She called it Grace Day because she said everyone needs grace, both the hungry person asking for food and the proud person learning how to become human again. Chief Adewale arrived slower than before, leaning more heavily on his walking stick, but his smile was bright. The children ran to him as if he were family because by then he was. Saad hugged his leg and asked if he had come in 7 SUVs again. He laughed. No, my princess. Today I came with only 1 car. 7 was for stubborn people who needed waking up. Kemi, now confident in her school uniform, read a short speech. My mother taught us that poor does not mean empty. Sometimes the person with the least food has the biggest heart. But she also taught us that kindness must be joined with wisdom, so no one uses your goodness to bury you. Amara wiped tears from her face as the crowd applauded. Tayo presented a drawing of the old midnight scene: 7 black SUVs, a small house, and a woman standing barefoot with children behind her. At the top he had written, God knows our address. Chief Adewale held the drawing for a long time. This one, he said, voice thick, will hang in my office. Then Amara spoke. The market square quieted the way it had quieted 1 year earlier, but this time no one was waiting for exposure. They were waiting for wisdom. That day I thought I was losing my last bag of rice, she said. I did not know I was planting it. Many people think planting is only when you put seed in soil. But sometimes you plant when you forgive. Sometimes you plant when you feed someone who cannot repay you. Sometimes you plant when you refuse to become cruel in a cruel world. But let me also say this, Amara continued. Do not help people only because you hope they are secret millionaires. Help because they are human. If Chief had remained a poor stranger, feeding him would still have been right. The blessing was not that he became rich. The blessing was that I did not allow hunger to make me heartless. The crowd became very still. That was the heart of the story and everyone felt it. Chief Adewale stepped forward with one final announcement. He had established a permanent foundation in Amara's late husband's name, the Emika Grace Fund, created to protect widows from property theft and help poor children stay in school. Amara would serve on the board, not as a decoration but as a decision-maker. Uncle Chuka, who had been ordered by the court to stay away from the land and repay legal costs, stood far at the back. He looked older, smaller. Amara saw him. For a moment, anger knocked at her heart. Then she remembered the night she had told Kemi anger was expensive. After the gathering, she walked to him. People watched carefully. Chuka lowered his eyes. Amara, I am ashamed. You should be, she said honestly. I forgive you for my own peace, she continued. But forgiveness does not mean you can come near my children's land again. He swallowed. I understand. She walked away lighter, not because he deserved it, but because she refused to carry him any longer. That evening, as the sun lowered over the rice fields, Amara stood with her children at the edge of Emika's land. Green stalks moved in the wind. Kemi held her mother's hand. Tayo lifted Saad so she could see farther. Mama, Tayo said, when I grow up I will build trucks for our rice. Saad added, and I will eat it. They laughed. Amara looked up at the sky and whispered, Emika, we are still here. The wind moved through the rice like a soft answer. Closing moral narration. Some people will tell you to protect what little you have by closing your hand. But Amara's story reminds us that a closed hand cannot receive, and a bitter heart cannot recognize blessing when it arrives. She did not feed the stranger because he had power. She fed him because hunger had a face and she still had enough humanity to see it. That is the kind of kindness the world cannot fake. That is the kind of grace that walks quietly through dusty markets, sits beside forgotten people, and changes the story before midnight. Maybe you are like Amara today. Maybe you are holding your last bag of rice, your last strength, your last hope, your last reason to keep believing. Maybe people have laughed at you for being too soft, too honest, too forgiving, too generous. But remember this: kindness is not weakness when wisdom is holding its hand. Do good, but do not let people steal your dignity. Help others, but do not surrender the future of your children to greedy hands. Forgive, but learn. Rise, but stay humble. And when God finally brings your midnight convoy, do not use it to crush the people who mocked you. Use it to build a table where fewer people will ever have to beg for bread again. Because sometimes the miracle is not only that 7 SUVs came to the door. Sometimes the real miracle is that poverty failed to make a good woman cruel. And that is why, in Yumiri town, whenever a stranger asks for water, people remember Amara and say, "Be careful how you treat the person in the dust. Heaven may be watching through their eyes." This is Grace and Justice Stories. If this story touched your heart, remember the lesson: what you give with love may leave your hand, but it never leaves your life.